Day 18 of the people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump. And the ex-president's former attorney, Michael Cohen, is just off the witness stand. The jury is done with their service for the day. Prosecutors and attorneys for the ex-president are dealing with the all-important question of what happens next. It's happening right now, a hearing over what the defense's case will look like and if they will make a case, if they have a case to present. Any updates from that hearing that is happening as we meet, we'll bring them to you right away. All this is in the wake of a rather desperate and uneven attempt by Team Trump to undercut Michael Cohen's credibility. It was, to be generous, hit and miss. Defense attorney Todd Blanche had a second chance at cross-examining Michael Cohen after a day of rest yesterday. And he moved around from topic to topic so quickly that Todd Blanche decided that Todd Blanche should apologize to the jurors who would decide his client Donald Trump's fate. He said this, quote, "Sorry, we're jumping around a bit," end quote. Todd Blanche tried to use Cohen's words against him, including Cohen's fiery comments criticizing Donald Trump, things he said on his podcast, as well as Michael Cohen's admission that he lied to Congress, to which Michael Cohen pointed out it was all in service of Donald Trump and done in coordination with an attorney for Donald Trump. Todd Blanche also tried to make Cohen out to be disgruntled and angry about Trump not taking him to the White House. It earned Todd Blanche 24 objections from prosecutors. The vast majority of those objections were sustained by Judge Juan Merchan. And through it all, Cohen proved himself a very well-prepared and unflappable witness. During one particularly tense moment, Blanche did manage to undermine one part of Cohen's direct testimony. It's something that was not significant enough to have been discussed here. We went back and checked our transcripts, but it was a piece of testimony from Michael Cohen elicited on direct about a phone call Cohen said was made in the days before he paid Stormy Daniels $130,000 in hush money. Cohen says he told Trump about the payment, but Blanche today claimed that Cohen was talking to Keith Schiller about being prank called by a 14-year-old. Before Cohen's cross-examination at the very start of court today, there was a lengthy sidebar. It included a complaint from the district attorney's office about Trump's allies muscling around in court, what we on this program have referred to as the Red Tie Brigade. Prosecutor Susan Hoffinger asked that they not be allowed to file in during the middle of court proceedings, arguing that witnesses and jurors can see it. Today, a whole new group of Trump sycophants appeared in court, including several of his fellow coup plotters. Jeffrey Clark was free. So was Matt Gaetz. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Here at the table, MSNBC legal analyst Andrew Weissmann. He joins us after spending the morning down at the courthouse. Also back from the courthouse, New York Times investigative reporter Suzanne Craig. Also joining us, former Brooklyn prosecutor Charles Coleman. We're going to start, as we always do, with my friend and colleague, NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, outside the courthouse for us. Vaughn Hilliard, let me start with what's happening right now. Do you have any insights into what is being discussed with Judge Juan Merchan?
There's currently, with the jury having already been dismissed, Nicole, there is now a conversation like one this morning that started for 20 minutes in private, where there was discussions over the extent to which previous trials, which previous information about Michael Cohen could be brought before the jury here. But there is currently their deliberation over the extent to which there are questions, as I'm trying to pull up here in real time, Nicole. I'm sorry I got lost here in the dock for a quick moment. But this is a little bit where we're getting into the weeds here, and our own producer Gary Grumbach inside is noting that this is where, again, we're at late points in this trial here, and literally as we thought that maybe today would be the day that Todd Blanche would finish his cross-examination of Michael Cohen, you now have a moment here where there is last-minute negotiating over what can be brought before this jury ahead of what is now going to be a three-day weekend here for them.
So just take us through what is expected to happen. The cross-examination is not over. It picks up again on Monday, and then there would be a redirect. So the prosecutors are taking notes of any, I think we should say we're all grown-ups, so we're not going to grade on a curve. Todd Blanche seemed to have made one good point about Michael Cohen's direct testimony about this phone call from October 24th. But the prosecution obviously preparing and taking notes on anything. What is your sense of how long that will be, the redirect, the chance for prosecutors to go back and talk to Michael Cohen after he's been cross-examined for 3 days by Todd Blanche?
Right. I think it'll really depend after this cross-examination completes, the extent to which they feel like Michael Cohen was able to share a story here with this jury that was compelling, believable, and do they need to go and try to fix some of the stories, particularly that October 24th phone call between Keith Schiller and what Michael says included Donald Trump. But let's also be very clear here. Going into that lunch break, that is where the October 24th phone call was called into question by Todd Blanche in whether those text messages would suggest that the conversation between Michael Cohen and Keith Schiller were something different than what Michael Cohen testified on Monday to that conversation being. But the one part about this is that we were looking this afternoon, what other parts of Michael Cohen's story would be called into question. There were at least 6 other phone calls in October of 2016 that Michael Cohen testified to this jury about, in which he says that Donald Trump was giving directives to him to complete that $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels. You didn't hear any questioning about those 6 other phone calls. You haven't heard any questioning yet about the August 2015 conversation at Trump Tower between Michael Cohen, David Pecker, and Donald Trump. You didn't hear any questioning about the January 17th, 2017 meeting, 3 days before inauguration, where after Alan Weisselberg and Michael Cohen allegedly scratched down on paper how he was going to be reimbursed, and that meeting inside of Trump's office that Michael says took place in which Donald Trump approved how the reimbursement checks were going to get back to him. We didn't hear any questioning about that story. You also didn't hear any questioning so far about the February 8th, 2017 meeting in the Oval Office in which Michael Cohen says he talked to Donald Trump about getting the assurance that, in fact, he would get those 11 checks over the course of the year 2017. So there is much of the story that Michael Cohen told this jury on Monday and Tuesday that under cross-examination he is yet to be questioned about. So a lot right now is very much hanging on that October 24th phone call that was being called into question. And Michael Cohen, when he was asked about how he could recollect these specific phone calls, when he had 1,400 calls a month at that period of time, he said, these were really important phone calls. And I've been telling this story for 6 years. And for 6 years, my story has not changed. And it's not changing today.
It seems, Andrew Weissmann, that all of the efforts to smear Michael Cohen are in some ways a bulwark against whatever Todd Blanche is doing, right? I mean, they elicited from Hope Hicks that he wasn't the kind of guy who would pay out of his pocket for anything. He elicited from David Pecker that Michael Cohen didn't have a leash long enough to buy his own cup of coffee. He elicited from every witness evidence that Michael Cohen never would have spent enough money. I mean, Michael Cohen didn't have a budget to buy lunch without Donald Trump's permission.
Are you reading from my notes?
No! I can barely see mine.
That is the script that is going to be flipped in summation. You already know the state is on that. What is this phrase? Like a duck on a June bug. They are on that. They know that is why Hope Hicks said when this was supposed to be Michael Cohen out of the goodness of his heart did this. So they're going to say, look, for all of this as being a louse, I mean, that's just one more reason. And as Michael Cohen testified, he said, I told him not just because I wanted credit, that's what the rules are, but he wanted to get repaid.
Right.
So if you want to get repaid, you need to tell him. They're going to have to come up with a different theory, which is he did this as a sort of investment to sort of getting good with Trump and see if he would sort of bring him to the White House, and that when that didn't happen, he was so angry that he was only the personal counsel to the president of the United States. So I have to say, as a lawyer, I'm not sympathetic to that story. It's oh, gee, I'm only going to be the personal counsel to the president, like David Kendall and Bob Bauer. I mean, these are the cream of the crop, and it's this is Michael Cohen. I mean, so this is disparity in caliber, and so that's their big problem. Is sort of taking small pieces and stringing together a narrative that actually holds water. And I think that's why Vaughn is so right to say, look, but how does what happened, let's just think about it analytically, how does that explain everything? And even the October 24th call, where there was this absolutely good reason to think that something came up about this harassing call. This is not an either or. I mean, it's like, you know what, you can walk and chew gum. I mean, that isn't sort of a gotcha. And that is not the most important call. I actually think one of the most important calls is the two calls with Donald Trump on the 26th of October, where he says, yes, go ahead and make the payment because, you know what, we can't delay anymore.